Good morning, part twos. It's Friday, July the 22nd, and today we are going to get another experience with morality and ethics. So, in the first module, we engaged in morality and ethics through social sin, media, and moral relativism. We're going to encounter ethics this time with the Church's social teachings, okay, which is social justice. And this is the part of our morals and ethics that help us create a Christian lifestyle. Okay, so our identity as Catholics, Catholic Christians, is not just a religion. It's not just about prayer. It's not just about ritual. It's not just about going to church. It's about creating a lifestyle that's 24/7. We're going to end this course in the third module with evangelize. And we're going to go more deeply into the document, into the encyclical Laudato Si, Care for Our Common Home. And this is one of the wonderful gifts that Pope Francis gave us in this encyclical, okay? Not just for the church, but for the whole world, because we are in a crisis. We definitely, people who deny that we're in a climate crisis, I'm not sure where they're getting their perspective from, but every so often in history, and we know this happens, right? Like our climate gets affected and it changes. And, you know, some of it is through no fault of our own, but through a lot of it, it is through the decisions we make as a human race. We are probably making this climate change go faster and more, it's going to be more detrimental to us in our lifestyle and our common home, which is the earth. So we are decision makers. And I think that's the first thing we need to really land on in terms of our identity and how we are in relationship with God. So God created us in three ways. One is the decision maker, okay? And I'll go into depth about that. So the ability, the power of being able to make our own decisions, okay? And that has a huge impact on how we see morality and ethics in this post-Vatican II church, okay? Then we are created with free will. And I've said this before, I'm going to keep saying this. God didn't make us robots. He didn't make us the same. We weren't put into a factory being the same creature. Like we are different in every way. Even identical twins that are born into this world, there is a slight difference in who they are, okay? So that is a gift and it is a challenge. So all the gifts God gave us is wonderful, but they're also very challenging. And the third one is God made us co-creators with God. And we don't really think about that. Because we're created in the image and likeness of God, God made us co-creators. And how did God do that? Through our sexuality. So our sexuality is a gift from God, and it's an important piece of who we are. And we as a society have a hard time dealing with our sexuality. We're not sure often, what to do with it, how to manage it in our lives. There's so many mixed messages, and it's a powerful force. It's being driven by our hormones and our emotion and our need for love. We're created out of love. Our deepest desire is about love. Every decision we make practically is based on, giving or receiving love. Very complex. It seems very simple, but it's very complex, and we're driven by these different gifts that God has given us. So this is why the church has such incredibly strong teachings, because of the fact that we need guidance, we need boundaries, we need to figure out how to use these gifts that God gave us. How do we become a better decision maker? How do we use our gift to be able to choose what we want to do through our free will? And then how do we manage our sexuality and the power behind that? Okay? So as co-creators, God started creation and God said, here, you're taking over. You keep creation going. So we have, but what's happened in the process of that power that God's given us, right? So, with what's going on in the States with the abortion issue, that's huge. I could spend a whole hour on that, and now, we're burning, we're burning up. right? It's summer, fires, overheating, people are dying. So many things are happening because we are decision makers. Okay? So it's not about, oh, why did God do this to us? Where's God? Why is God making bad things happen to good people? God just said, I'm giving you free will. I'm going to suffer with you and I'm going to support you. But you need faith to see that I'm in your life. You need faith to call out to me. You need faith to make sure you see is when I carry you, right? Footprints, that classic reflection that speaks to all of us. So that's a really complex perspective on the church's teachings on morality and ethics. So I'm trying to simplify it into, bite-sized pieces, okay? Moral theology is a huge study. You had an article here from the Catholic Update by Kenneth Overberg. He's a Jesuit. I have a whole book on morality from him. Excellent resource. And if you can get something by him, he explains things incredibly well in terms of Catholic moral theology. Sparks as well, Father Richard Sparks, excellent moral theologian. So there's a lot of them out there that if you really want to understand Catholic moral teachings, that you can tap into their work, okay? But I'm just going to try to summarize it here and, of course, end with the gospel. So when we look at, in the first one, you looked at social sin, and that's a huge one because sin is not just personal, and we can never think that a decision we make will not impact someone else. Even if we're living totally alone, our decision making impacts others in some way, whether it's small or large, right? I always give the example, like just even of the morning snooze, right? You wake up in the morning and, you press the snooze a couple of times and now you're late. Harmless, right? But not so much, right? So if you're living with a family, you get up, you're angry, you're getting mad at people for no reason, you're rushing, you may not take the breakfast that you need, you'll forget something, you'll jump in the car and you start driving. And that experience of driving is marked by who you are in that moment, right? So if you're frantic, if you're frazzled, if you're, you're going to make decisions based on that. So instead of, coming to a stop when you see, okay, the light's about to change, instead of barreling through the light, you might decide to slow down and take that red light. Or you might think, oh my God, I'm so late, I can't. So you speed up, you run through the yellow, which turns red. Most times we're lucky, nothing happens. But one day, that decision, because you're late, because you press the snooze, because you're frazzled, because, you might get into an accident. And this no longer just affects you. Someone might be hurt. Someone might get killed. Maybe nobody might get hurt, but then you have to repair your car because you smashed into a light pole. Impacts your family budget. Impacts your life because now you're going to be without a car. You got to deal with injury. Got my message? You get to work, you're not a nice person. Because even if you made it through all those lights, you just made it in with the bell, your whole day is already because you pressed the snooze. So our decision-making powers are huge, and that's just a small little incident I'm talking about, right? And we could talk about the bigger ones, being co-creators with God. We are feeling, we're not married, we're feeling lonely, our hormones are calling us to satisfy them, right? And you make decisions. And you make decisions that you think, oh, well, I'll take a chance. I'll run that yellow light. But maybe you should have waited for the red. Because now you're making a decision between life and death. So anytime a human being decides to have sex, whether they're married or not married, that moment of sexual intimacy where you have intercourse with another human being, you're saying yes to the potential of creating another life. Because God gave us the power of our sexuality, the power to be co-creators, the power to create another life. And with that comes a huge responsibility. Am I going to take ownership for that? Am I ready to take ownership for the outcome of my sexual pleasures? Or do I have to restrain myself and make sure that I'm in a position to deal with the outcome of a sexual encounter where I may not be ready to take care of another life or make a decision for another life, right? I laugh about, the strong sexual urges, like the food urges, right? Do I have that chocolate bar? Is it going to serve me? I mean, it's a totally different thing, but I'm just going to put it into things like, that we can relate to, right? And what is that chocolate bar going to do? It's going to be a moment of satisfaction, but then I'm going to be like, ugh, there we go. I broke my diet or whatever. You start feeling bad about yourself because it's no longer giving you satisfaction. You made a poor decision. But at least with the chocolate bar, you're not making a life and death decision about that chocolate bar. But it is impacting you and how you feel about yourself and about your physical health and so many other things. So not one decision is just, benign. We engage with so many other issues in that decision-making process, right? So as, we look at the church's social teachings, we're asking ourselves, can we create a Christian lifestyle? Because Christianity is 24/7. It's not 1 hour on Sunday. It's not our night prayers. As Catholic educators, we know it's more than that because we take it to work with us, right? So we as the laity of the church have a greater sense of carrying our faith with us into our daily lives because we take it in with us to work, as most lay people in the Catholic Church don't. But even, doesn't matter what we do for a living, because we are decision makers, because we're created in the image and likeness of God, right? Because we have free will, it's a 24/7, when we're conscious. When we're sleeping, we can kind of relax, But even in our dreams, are we making moral decisions, right? So that's why I use that example of the snooze in the morning, because that second of morning consciousness when you wake up, boom, you are the decision maker. What are you doing with your free will? How are you going to be a positive co-creator with God today? How are we going to maintain the dignity of human life today, right? So when the church puts out teachings, when the church says anything, when the church supports any of its past teachings, even though it may seem irrelevant to us today and doesn't fit the culture and the lifestyle of our secular society today, right? There's a reason why the church continues to support these teachings, because everything of moral, ethical teaching, creating boundaries for our free will and decision making is based on the dignity of human life. And this is why the church is slow in putting out its documents, its teachings, or updating anything or responding to anything, because it's taking the process of investigating the violation or potential violation of the dignity of human life. So the church is going to be very cautious, and the church has its researchers. It's in all fields in this world. It's in law. It's in medicine. It's everywhere, and they're doing the research, and they're being very particular. They are not going to budge on what the church believes. The church believes in life. And that will never change. The church believes in the culture of life, not the culture of death. And so as much as we want their teachings to change, they will not, because they're going to help us, people of free will, to try to make that moral decision based on life. Okay, part 2's coming.